Dope Discussions Podcast. Dope discussions, gated Erica woke discussions, mob ties, how they rock and think they both was cousins, gifting you with their words so you might know you something. Just go and look for them live. They do it every Sunday. Every Sunday.
And we gon' bring you that dope. And we gon' bring you that dope. It's Gator Beat, baby. Main state to state, baby, coast to coast. Like the vibe, baby, spark to jokes. And we gon' bring you that dope. Come talk with Erica, man, talk with G. And all you gotta do is talk with me. And we gon' bring you that dope. And we gon' bring you that dope. And we gon' bring you that dope. And we gon' bring you that dope.
Gator, you're muted.
Oh, I know, because I wanted to hide my beatboxing skills, right? So I was doing a little bit of, behind the scenes work on my beatboxing, right? I was just like, because I can't let that out yet. I can't let y'all see the skills just yet.
Good evening, Derek Jones, Relationship Gumbo Podcast. Good evening. I see you trying to be in the beard gang, huh, Gator?
So let me tell you something here. By the way, welcome everyone in the virtual congregation. How y'all doing this evening? No. So here's the thing, right?
Okay.
I decided to try to see if I could because working from home, sometimes you could be a little bit disheveled. So
Yeah.
I could get through. I think if I could get through the disheveled phase, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe some of my Apaches can fill in a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, it ain't been working so far because I still got the ability right here. But but it's not that far. I refuse to go Beijing because somebody said that. They was like, well, you should do Beijing. You ain't got nothing but this or this. Nah, that's all right.
Fake it. They said fake it till you make it.
She said, yeah. Me not faking no beard. I'm not about to paint my beard on my face. Look, I gotta stand by my word.
No, because I clowned you. Go get you a beard installed. Nobody never know.
You gotta go get the installation of a beard. Nah, that's all right. Homie, don't play that. Not even on Christmas. We're not gonna do it.
Welcome back, everybody, to another Dope Discussions Live Sunday. This is your girl, Erica, and your boy Gator Live. We're coming to you live from Louisiana and Georgia. If you're new to this channel or if you're returning, we have conversations every week about relationships, dating, mental health, and how those three integrate, in our lives and how we can have better and healthier relationships. We bring y'all dope guests, and sometimes it's just me and Gator here, but today we're going to have a great special guest coming out to help us have another dope discussion. But I just want to make a note, y'all. I've been knowing Gator. How long we been knowing each other?
Oh, wow. It was the end of 2019.
So that's 19, 20, 21, 22, almost 4 years.
It's been, golly.
Time flies, right? When you're having fun. So,
right.
And this is the point that I'm making. I've been knowing Gator for almost 4 years. And Gator never had a beard until he got a woman.
So
Gator was single all them years and didn't get no beard. Now he all in love.
No.
Yes, it is. A woman will make you upgrade.
No, see, this is the thing, right? What happens is that some women be like, oh, that's patchy. You got to get rid of that. So, I had to go in my suave debonair,
Okay.
But but your women will be like, hey, you know what? You just need to go ahead. You can try to grow. I encourage you to allow it to grow.
Oh, so you got a woman that speaks to the beard.
Yeah, I'll encourage it. And I'll be like, okay, cool. Then I'll try it. Now, I say this right now. Next week it might be gone because I'll be sitting there sometimes like, it's kind of get rid of, itchy. It'd be kind of, I don't know. I wish I could grow a beard like Q. Q be doing this thing. I love he got the perfect, or like our guest today. Our guest today has a fantastic beard. It's got the perfect amount of gray. You know what I'm saying? He has a distinguished beard.
Exactly. So we're going to go ahead, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and bring out our special guest, Mr. Ernest James from the Deal to Heal podcast.
What's up?
What's
Good
going
evening.
on? Man of distinction and distinguishment. Look at that. Look at that beard.
Hey, I was backstage laughing, man, because I agree with both of y'all, right? So generally, beforehand, I only had the goatee, right? I, even if I had a beard, it was low cut, and then, got a little woman on the side, and she was like, hey, you need to let that come on out. So here we go.
See what I said? I told you.
Now, I must say, my girl's not the biggest fan of the beard. She's
really?
but she's like, okay, you can grow it in, you can try it and see. She said I look like a leprechaun.
My girl,
right?
she encouraged me to grow it out. So I was like, all right, because I was kind of against it, you know what I mean? I like to keep it low, like I said, just a little goatee. But I said, all right. And then now it's here. I'm like, all right, cool. Then some people was like, you need to color it in, get it dark. I'm like, no, look, it is what it is.
Right. I like the gray. The gray is nice.
Too. Like you said, distinguished. I'm like, man, I'm 45 years old. Who I'm trying to impress. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Whoever I'm trying to impress is already impressed.
Thank you.
Exactly.
I love it.
There you go.
Grown women like salt and pepper.
Yeah,
Right.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And that's what I've told him too. You know, I was talking to one of my guys, and he was the one that was saying darker than. I'm like, you trying to attract these little young chicks? I ain't got time for that. You know what I mean? If they scared at a grade, then they ain't in my age bracket anyway.
Exactly, I love it.
Right.
Yes, I love it. Well, welcome to the stage. This is our special guest, Mr. Ernest James, from he's the host of the Deal to Heal podcast, but that's not all he does. So I want him to introduce himself to you all and tell them what you do, what your platform is, and all of the other things that you do as well.
All right. Again, thanks everyone. My name is Ernest James. I am the host and creator of the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. That's the full name. Unfortunately, when we type it in, we can't always get the full name in there. But it's the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and where we discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in all the areas of our lives. So that's my my podcast, as well as so many other things that I do. I'm an author. I'm a motivational speaker. A whole lot of things. Lately, actually, just yesterday, I was a part of a workshop for the second time. We did a forgiveness workshop. I was the guest speaker in February, and then yesterday we just did the addition on to that, which was forgiveness in action with a awesome platform called Elevate to Thrive. So yeah, I do a lot of a little and a little of a lot. You know what I mean?
But I love it. Congratulations on that, and I thank you for joining us today, because when I reach out to ask people to join our platform, I specifically see something in your message or on your platform that matches with what we talk about here and the message that we want to put out here. And so today's topic, we're going to be talking about mastering our emotions versus emotional suppression. And I've looked at some of your, some of your content, and I know that you also have that message where you speak to men about healing, and getting in touch with their emotional side, and, just developing, emotional intelligence, maturity, because, for so many years, the men in our lives have been bombarded with the message that all you have to do is be a provider, go out there and make some money, bring it home, and then it stops there. Right. But then, our families don't get that emotional backbone and that emotional support that we need to make sure that Black families and Black communities and Black neighborhoods continue to grow and prosper and flourish. So I thank you for, joining us today. And we have a lot of fun on this show, but we also want to make sure that we put out important messages that people can go away with and, integrate into their everyday lives. So thank you so much for joining us. So tell me, what made you want to become a podcast host? What was your inspiration?
Well, you know what? That's a funny, long and short story at the same time, right? So I grew up with all these ideas and messages and conversations that I wanted to have. And believe it or not, I'm actually really a quiet person, right? I don't talk a lot. So and then I matured a lot faster than my circle growing up, right? I was like, I say by the time I had a house and car and all of that stuff and, married, my friends, I was 25, my friends was just getting started, what I'm saying? So I was like, because I always had a mindset, into the future. So I already had direction, where I wanted to go. So, but that being said, by me maturing so much faster than my circle, I couldn't have the kind of conversations that I wanted to have. You know what I mean? Because they weren't on what I was on. When we graduated from high school, I already knew what I wanted to do for a living. I already knew where I wanted to go, and I was on that. And they was, kicking at the strip clubs and all of that, and I'm like, so we're just in different places. So I couldn't have the kind of conversations that I wanted to have. So that's the beginning part of it. Fast forward years later, I come on Instagram, and my original platform that I started on Instagram was a male mentoring program called Man Up, which stands for Men Activating Newly Untapped Potential. Right. And so I'm still working with that. I'm gonna do some great things with that. But that was my original platform. Then as I was doing that in my marriage at the time, me and my wife at the time started having some issues in our marriage. And as we dove into it and began to look into it, I realized that the basics of it came from our upbringing, the difference in our upbringing. I came from a 2-parent home. She came from a single mother home, which is as a fatherless daughter. And I realized through that process that every woman I had ever talked to in my life has been a fatherless daughter. So either I was attracted to them or they were attracted to me, but for whatever reason, we were connecting. And so I started Friends to Fatherless Daughters, which is my other page on Instagram. And I just kind of just drew my viewpoint on fatherless daughters and, ways to, help them and encourage them coming from a male's perspective, because the fatherless daughter space is dominated by women, which as well as it should, because it's a women issue, but it starts with the man. And I always say a fatherless daughter, you are fatherless because it started with the man, because that's the reason why you were fatherless, but it also may take a man to help you heal some of that hurt. And so that was my message. That was one of the things that I was working on. And last year, actually, as soon as last year, I was contacted and asked that I want to be a guest on a podcast. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really know what podcasting was. Had never been on a podcast, or had never even listened to a podcast. And so I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I did it. And after that, I had about 3 or 4, actually probably about 5 or 6 more opportunities called and asked me to be a guest. And one of those opportunities, I was on a platform called Dads on Purpose, which was a father's platform where, encouraging fathers. And they're out of Houston, out of Texas. And I ended up going to Texas, and I connected with the host there. This was after our episode, but I told him, I'm like, hey, I'm being in Texas, if you're in the area, let's hook up. And so we got together for breakfast and had a discussion. And in that discussion, he was like, you need to have a podcast. You need to have your own platform. And I thought about it. And one of the other things that I'm into and was getting into at that time was public speaking. So motivational speaker, inspirational speaker with schools and things like that. And what I found as a downfall to me is you still have to wait for the opportunity. You know what I mean? You have to wait for the opportunity to speak. You can go to, reach out to as many people as they can that have control of the platforms, and then you still have to wait for them to accept you, right? So again, I have all these conversations I want to have, and I can't have them, And so when I started thinking about it, hey, this podcast thing, and I started thinking about it, and it's like, you know what? That was the answer to my prayers, to have my own platform, to be able to say what I want to say and have the discussions I want to have and meet great, intelligent people like yourselves and have these great discussions. I'm like, man, that's it. So I got here, and man, it's been a blast. It's been a blast.
Awesome. Yes, podcasting is the sweet spot. I tell Gator that all the time, and he says the same thing. Podcasting is sort of like our mini therapy sessions. Because much like you growing up, I was a very shy, quiet, introverted person. I had a lot of thoughts inside, but sharing them and vocalizing them outside to other people, I was too self-conscious, and I didn't think that anybody else would be able to identify and share my same views. And so a lot of my conversations I would have in my own head. But when you grow up and then you become confident in yourself, and then you start gravitating toward like-minded people to have these conversations with, not only people who think like you, but people who have different perspectives than you, so that they can open up your mind to seeing things in different ways that you hadn't seen before.
That is very, very true, man. I was the same way. And one of the things that was the biggest surprise for me was how much, I guess you could say, how much people embrace the differences in opinions when you get in the right space.
Right.
When you're around, like you said, intelligent people who actually can have a good conversation about things and actually can have discussions about different topics or whatever without having to come down hard on each other or whatever, it could be super fruitful. And it was surprising to me because I was like, I didn't think that people really cared about what I was thinking about. You know, so when you got in the game, what was the biggest surprise for you when you first started your podcast?
You know what? What really was the biggest surprise? Really wasn't so much as the people, but it's just the array of the type of podcast that is out there. The array of subject matter, the array of perspectives. You know what I mean? And that really what got me. I was like, man, this is so many people talking about so many things, and some things you might think is crazy. Like, what? Really? It's an ear for that. But you find out anything that you're interested in, or anything that you can think of, there's somebody else that's interested in it. You know what I mean? Right. And so just to be, be able to have those discussions and just be open to, I think now I've come across more people now with podcasts since I started mine than anything, and it just, and I love that community, man, and connecting with different people with different, platforms like you guys, man, just being able to connect with like-minded people, man. It's great, man. I wouldn't change it. The only thing I wish I had got into it earlier. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I wish I had known about it earlier. Maybe, man, I would say as early as about 5 years ago. If I could have got in about 5 years ago, yeah, that really would have been tight.
Right.
Yeah. So tonight's topic, we're talking about mastering our emotions versus emotional suppression. And I wanted to talk about this because a lot of times I think that the way that a lot of us grew up in Black families, we probably think that both of those are the same thing. We think that mastering your emotions is meaning pushing your emotions down and pretending that you don't have emotions in order to push through and go through life and do the things that you need to do, as far as going out there and working jobs that you hate just to make money to pay the bills, right. And we have to suppress how we really feel to do what we need to do in life. But those two things are so far removed from each other. Emotional suppression is what we learned, and it was the wrong thing. It was the dysfunctional way we learned to handle our emotions. And then once you grow up and evolve, and you realize that you're going through situations over and over again, but you're getting results that you don't want, but you don't know a different way to do it. So you continue to do it the same way. Once you become exposed to somebody else who has a different way of doing it and they're getting a different result, that's when you realize that, hey, the way I've been taught my whole life, this is not good for me. This is not getting me where I need to go. So I need to start to, erase or remove some of that programming that I've grown up with my whole life. And that ain't an easy thing to do.
Right.
And then try to relearn and retrain myself into some better and healthier ways of dealing with my emotions. I was having this conversation with a girlfriend about 2 weeks ago, and I was like, it was really sad to say that I made it to my 40s and I still am learning all of the words and the ways to be able to express my emotions, because for so many years when somebody would ask me, how are you feeling? I didn't have the words to express it, to verbalize it. And I know if that's me as a woman growing up, how even more difficult it can be for men who have been raised to not have any emotions at all. At least as women, being emotional, it's kind of expected of us, and we're taught that women are more emotional than men are, which is really a fallacy. Men are emotional as well. They just been taught that they shouldn't have emotions.
Right.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I'm glad you started there, right? Because that was definitely something that I wanted to touch on, which is us and the way that we're raised. We have to stop spreading these narrative or still not necessarily spreading, but carrying on these narratives that's been passed down from generation to generation that really is not good, and one of them is, big boys don't cry, or, suck it up and be a man. And now on one hand, definitely with me having sons, that is something I do understand. You do want your sons to be, to be tough when it's time to be tough. You don't want them to be overly emotional, right? But on the other hand, you don't want to be void of emotion either, because emotions is something that we're born with. It's something that we have on the inside, and we have to be able to express it and know how to express it correctly. And it goes the same thing with our daughters, right? And like you said, daughters are expected to be emotional. But one of the things that I deal with, especially when I'm talking to fatherless daughters, is because by not having that male presence in their life, now they're overly emotional, right? And so one of the things I always teach is that men have to learn to deal with facts and not feelings, right? When it comes to making our decisions, because we are the head of households, because we have people that dependent on us, we can't react emotionally. We have to act on facts, when we're going to make decisions. However, one of the main facts we got to remember is that the fact that we are emotional is a fact. So we still have to deal with our emotions, but we just have to deal with it in a healthy way. And so when it comes to our children, we do want to teach our sons to be strong, to stand up, to not be overly emotional, and there are times when you got to suck it up because you got to get things done. Like, look, we'll cry later. Right now, we got to work. You know what I mean? But we can't deny the fact that, okay, now when the work is done, now let's talk about it. Let's talk about what it is that we were feeling, what it is that we were dealing with, so that we can have that healthy emotional space. And the opposite almost with our daughters. Our daughters are overly emotional. So be emotional, but let's get some of that emotion under control so that we're not making emotional decisions. You know what I mean? There's a scripture in the Bible that says, be angry, but sin not. So it's not a sin to be angry. It's natural. Things are going to happen that's going to make us mad. Things are going to happen that we're not going to agree with. Things are going to happen that we're not going to be happy with. But what we have to control is how we react to those things. You know what I mean? Just because you may be mad don't mean I can punch you in the face. I might want to, but I'm upset, but I have to be able to make a rational decision outside of my emotion and be able to think to what are the repercussions of my actions. If I act out of anger, if I don't act out of anger, what's going to happen, and what is it that I want to achieve when I act whichever way I act. So if I know that, I feel like punching in your face right now, but 9 times out of 10 I'm gonna end up in jail, then I might just, I know, okay, let me just walk away. You know what I mean? But we have to be in touch with our emotions in order to make that kind of decision, and that kind of, like I said, teaching those things to our children while they're young, suck it up to the boys and man up, and then also to the girls, just expecting them to be overly emotional, and then even with how they express themselves and the rolling of the eyes and all that. Calm that down. Calm it down. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? And so it's a balance. And that is my word was for last year and for this year is intentionality and balance. To be intentional about everything that I do, and then yet to be balanced, to have a balanced life. And that's in everything, whether it's finances, relationship, everything that's in your life, you got to find that balance. And definitely with our emotions, because our emotions is so tied into who we are and our decisions that we make and the things that we do, we definitely have to, learn how to deal with our emotions.
Yes.
Right. Now, through your journey, I know you've encountered all types of men and, people who process their, emotions differently, or some who don't process them healthily at all. What is the most prevalent emotion that you see that men have a problem processing?
I would say it's two of them, right? And they almost on opposite ends of the spectrum, right? One is anger, and the other one is love. You know what I mean? And you would think, what that don't make sense, but it is. Men have a hard time expressing their anger without going into physical anger. You know what I mean? Like physically, men don't have a problem with acting out. But to be able to express the anger without being angry, be able to express the anger without acting out the anger, they don't know how to do it. You know what I mean? And on the other side of it, when it comes to love, sometimes because we equate love sometimes with weakness, You know what I mean? They don't know how to express their love. And a lot of times I found that oftentimes we are our biggest enemies, being men, right? Because of, in some instances, the way that we grew up, learning that men don't cry and, to hold your emotions. I've been in circles of men who definitely I know personally, and I know the kind of man that you are. So I know that, you may, let's just say for a woman, you may love a woman, right? And you want to do, show her that you love, but because you're in this community of all these guys who walking around, even though verbally they're saying with their mouths, oh yeah, we players, and you know what I'm saying, we don't love those and all of that. You know what I mean? So now you're reacting, treating this woman the way that you're treating her because you want to fit in, but on the inside, you really know, man, I really do care for her and I do want to treat her differently, but then how is my circle going to look at me? You know what I mean? Well, I think a lot of times that's our biggest problem that we have is as men, is other men getting to the point where we can be vulnerable enough to express how we really feel and not worry about how we're going to be judged or talked about by our immediate circle or by our circle at large, and there's a good thing that's happening now. We're talking more about the emotional space and mental health and all of that. It's more of a everyday conversation now, but it's way overdue. It's way overdue.
Yeah, I love what you said about the balance, and I think if we change the language around how we speak about emotions, then it would change the way that people react to them. It's like, because in society, you have a set of emotions that are considered feminine and a set of emotions that are considered more masculine and more acceptable for a man to express. Whereas emotions are emotions. They are not men's emotions or women's emotions. They're all human emotions. And when we remove those socially acceptable constructs from around emotions, then we can get better in touch with them and we can stop criticizing men for it's weak if a man expresses that he's sad or if he expresses that he's hurt, if somebody's hurt him. I can't show that because that's a weakness. Whereas it's more acceptable for a woman to express if she's hurt or if she's sad about something. But when a man is actually hurting and when he's actually sad, but he's not allowed to feel that, or he has nobody that's going to actually accept him expressing that, where does he put it? It turns into anger because that's the most acceptable masculine emotion. So everything that I feel, I'm going to change it into anger and express it that way. But then you're misunderstood because you're acting out in anger. Everything makes you angry, and then you do things in anger. So people just think you're angry, quote unquote, angry black man, when you're actually hurt. But you can't even say that because nobody's going to accept you saying that. And so I think if we remove all of that, what's masculine, what's feminine, what's acceptable, what's not, and just understand that an emotion is actually just a piece of data. It's a piece of information. It's telling you something is wrong. Either something outside of you is wrong that's making you feel that emotion, or something inside of you is out of order that's making you feel that emotion. And all you need to do is take that emotion, trace it back to what caused me to feel this way, so you can get to the root of the issue. And it's not a weakness. It's a piece of information that you need to act upon.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. And you actually hit on a couple of things that I wanted to speak on also. And one of the things is that we have to learn how to deal with our emotions, because what we've learned to do sometime as men, even when it comes to releasing our anger, we exchange our emotional release for a physical release, right? So whether we're releasing it in anger, or, let's say a guy starts working out, and so now he's releasing his anger with working out. We turn it into something physical, even if it's something that we do as for leisure. Let's say we play basketball, so now we're on the court all day playing basketball. So yeah, it's good to have that physical release, but we also have to have that emotional release, because that emotional, if we keep holding it inside, is going to start affecting us physically. Right. That's when we start having strokes. People start having, heart attacks and things like that, because what's going on in the inside. You look fine and healthy on the outside, but on the inside, you're troubled. On the inside, your mind is running all day long. On the inside, you're depressed, and that's another thing that we have to be willing to talk about, even with is depression. Right. So one of the things that I shared numerous times on my podcast and on other platforms was, my bout with depression and wanted to commit suicide, like literally thinking about committing suicide.
Wow.
It was at a dark part in my life. I was going through a divorce at the time. I was in debt at the time, and then my mom passed away.
Wow.
This same time period, and I was at the lowest point that I've ever been in my life, and I literally thought about committing suicide.
Wow.
And luckily for me, I did have some people in my life that was able to grab me and bring me back to the light. And also, if we do find ourselves in that space, one of the things we have to do is find something that's worth living for. One of the things that I was able to find was my daughter. My daughter is my only biological child. And at a young age, she dealt with a lot of people dying. Unfortunately, during the time where she was born, we lost a lot of loved ones in that time period. A lot of loved ones who she was close to, which was her grandmother on, her mother's side, was passed away 3 years before my mother passed away. She passed away from cancer. My mother also passed away from cancer.
Wow.
And my daughter was my shadow. Everywhere I went, my daughter was with me. And so one of the things I had to catch myself and think about, what's going to happen to my daughter if I'm gone?
Right.
Yeah.
Already in her young life, at this time, she probably was like 7. So already in her young life, she's already lost 2 grandmothers. You know what I mean? She's already lost other family members who she was close to. And I'm like her number one fan, and not taking anything away from her mother, but she's a daddy's girl. Right.
Yeah.
She's with me all the time. So what's going to happen to her if I'm no longer here? So that within itself gave me something to hold on to get through that part. And again, I had some great people in my life at that time that also took me by the hand and helped me through that transition. But we have to be able to have these conversations, because I know I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that was depressed. I'm not the only one that has lost people, especially in this period that we're in with the pandemic. There are so many. When I mentioned we did that I was part of the forgiveness workshop. The one we did in February, one of the young ladies who was on there, and she was talking about she was having problems with learning to forgive herself from some of the decisions that she made. But she mentioned in that workshop that during this pandemic, she lost 16 family members. 16. And I did lose a few. I lost my grandmother, and some other family members during this time, but it wasn't nowhere near 16.
Right.
And so definitely I have to recognize, that I'm not the only one that's going through something. I'm not the only one that's dealing with something. And especially as men, we have to vocalize it, and we got to make it normal. We got to make it normal, just like you said, it's normal for women to act out and to show their emotions. It got to be normal for men too, because we have the same emotions.
Yeah.
We're going through the same trials. We're dealing with the same things. We're dealing with loss. We're dealing with hurt. We're dealing with pain. We're dealing with all the same issues. So we got to get to a point where it's normal for us to express it and accept it amongst ourselves, to express it and building safe spaces for ourselves. And I think that's one of the biggest things right now that we need to do as a male community, right? Start building these safe spaces among each other where it's okay to say I'm hurting, where it's okay to say I'm dealing with something, where it's okay to say I'm going through this divorce and I'm acting like I ain't hurt, but I am. What I mean? Really having these spaces to be able to express that and not be ashamed of expressing it, whether we're accepted or not, because we got to do it for us. At some point, we got to separate ourselves from our community, from our circle, from our circle of influence, to say, you know what, this is how I'm feeling. I got to get this out verbally, not physically, not angrily, but I
Right,
got
right.
to release this emotion that I have, and I don't care how anybody else feel about it, because it's
Mm-hmm.
what I need for my self healing, and we just got to get to that point and make it normal. We got to normalize it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We got to
definitely.
promote that in our young boys with every generation. We got to promote that it's actually it's a skill set. It's something that has to be taught to our boys how to verbalize their emotions, how to say what they're feeling because then even for me personally, once I was able to start verbalizing it and letting it come out of my
Hmm.
mouth, that created a space where I was less reactive in my body.
Mhm.
Because if a boy doesn't have the language to say it verbally, he's going to act it out. And so, if we give them the language and we create the safe spaces where it's acceptable, it's okay, nobody's going to judge you, nobody's going to call you weak, nobody's going to make you feel a way about it. When you verbalize it, it gets it out. Somebody has heard it, somebody has validated that they heard it, that they understand it, that they felt that before, or even if they don't understand it, they can support you in getting it out, and that will make our boys less physically reactive. And I think that's going to be a healthier environment for everybody involved in their life. But some of them just don't feel like they have any other outlet than to be physical with it.
Yeah, and I think that's because we're not having the conversations, right? And even like you said, not having the words to express how you feel. One of the things that I taught my sons, and one of the things that I teach other young boys also, is having the words, right? Because when we get to a certain age, now we want to start cursing, right? And you catch your kids cursing, saying all these other
Right.
words. And I always tell my sons, if you have to curse to express how you feel, then you don't know enough words. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have a limited vocabulary. And so I would make them go look up words in the thesaurus
Right.
to
Hmm.
be able to find out how can I say what you're
Hmm.
trying to say. I'm not going to tell you don't be angry. I'm not going to tell you not to express yourself, but I want you to express yourself in a healthy way. So let
Yeah.
me let me help you find other words to
Mm.
express yourself so that you can say what you're trying to say and get your point across without doing it in a way that makes you look bad, right? Without doing it in a way, again, that makes you look like the angry black man or the angry
Right.
black
Right.
boy.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's funny when you, especially when you get that mindset right and you get those words. And sometimes you can have conversations where you can verbally tear a person down, and because you're using words that they don't even understand, they like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But it allows you to get out what you're trying to say, right? To release that anger, to release it verbally, and in a way that gives you a peace where you don't have to be angry, you don't have to act it out in an angry way. But now you have those words to express yourself, and I think part of that again comes from us not having the conversations. But even after we're having the conversations, to go even further, like I said, to hey, let's pick up a thesaurus. Let's find other ways to say what you're trying to say. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because I don't want you to hold it in. I don't want
Right.
you to not express yourself. But let's just do it. Let's find a healthy way to do it and a healthy way to say it. That'll be beneficial for you, not just today, but for the rest of your life.
Right.
Right. Right. Right. Um, it's funny because I was listening to you talk earlier, and we have a very similar story. Like in 2013, I was going through a divorce. I lost my mom literally that same year, and one of the only things I had was my son to just kind of lean back on, and lost my grandmother the year after that, and it was just a lot of trauma and stress, and you're going through all of these things, all of these emotions, and in your case, you mentioned that you had a circle of people who were there to kind of help you out, identify you, and to be there for you. We're talking about mastering our emotions, but looking at this from the aspect of a lot of our audience out there who are women who
Hmm.
see the people, the men in their lives that might be struggling, what are some things that they can kind of look at and say, hey, this may be something that he needs help with? Like, how do you identify when that man in your life is suppressing these emotions versus actually expressing them?
Well, the first thing And the easiest way is just to ask the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
To ask the question, how do you feel? And 9 times out of 10, he's gonna say I'm straight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's gonna
And
be
you
some,
know he lying. You know he
Yeah.
lying.
yeah, it's gonna be some
Exactly.
one word answer, quick to the point. But before we get to the point where we're asking the questions, right? Definitely with our ladies, and I believe, it's a twofold when we're talking about building these spaces where men feel comfortable enough to express themselves. On one side, it is the men, right? We got to be around other men who makes it okay. But even more stronger than your male circle is your female circle.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Because if it's anybody that you're going to be vulnerable with, it's going to be the person that's laying next to you. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, a lot of times in a lot of situations, the women in our lives have used our emotions against us. You know what I mean? And has changed that narrative where now you don't even feel safe in your own home to be vulnerable. Right. So that's where our women come in, because again, you can be our greatest ally in this fight, but it takes some maturing on your part too. If you want me to talk about how I feel, you can't later come back and take the same things that I said and hold it against me. You can't take my moment of vulnerability and beat me down with it. Now you're saying that I'm weak because you're mad at this moment. Now you're telling me, oh, you weak and whatever, you crying and what, No, if you're going to be there for me, if you're going to nurture this environment where you want me to be able to confide in you and to really tell you what I'm dealing with, and you really want to be the rock that I need you to be, because we definitely need you, right? If you're going to be that, then you have to really take a strong stance and making sure that not only are you opening those doors for me to come in and be safe, but that you're protecting me. Right. And oftentimes we talk about women want to feel protected from men, but men want to feel protected from women too. We want to know that, hey, a lot of times if we look at how we equate it, a woman wants to feel like she's physically protected. Right. When I go out, with whoever I'm with, if I'm with a female cousin, female friend, whoever, they want to know or feel safe in my presence. So that if anything kick off, anything happen, they know I got their back and I got them, right? So men want to have that same thing, but from the outside looking in, 9 times out of 10, we got the physical part. Right. Physical protector, because that's what we grow up being taught. You are supposed to protect. So we already got that. But those times behind closed doors, when we're feeling with those emotions, when we're dealing with the hurt, when we're dealing with the depression, when we're dealing with all the loss, whether it's because we've lost loved ones, because we lost jobs, because we lost careers, because we lost anything that's dear to us that we're connected to emotionally, we have to have a safe space to be able to express that. Right. And our safe space should be in our home. But it takes our women, the women in our lives, whether it's, lovers, sisters, cousins, friends, mothers, to be able to create that environment where we feel safe and protected emotionally to be able to have those conversations. And that's where it starts. It starts in the home. We have our circle of men that we have in our lives that we definitely going to, let me go holler at my fellas about what I'm dealing with or how I'm feeling. But 9 times out of 10, there are things that you won't even have the conversation with your fellas that you will have with your woman. But you have to feel safe enough to have those conversations and knowing that she's not going to take that later on and use it against you in the moment where, at that moment where she's acting out of emotion. Right. I know we're here talking about men, but definitely the women plays a part in it too. All of us have to have that emotional balance, because we all need that same safe space to express how we feel emotionally and deal with our emotions and have a healthy outlook. And that's on both sides of the spectrum.
Exactly. Because if you're in a relationship, toxic relationship where you feel like you're on the battlefield and you're collecting weapons to use at a later date, then that you in the wrong relationship in the first place. You're in the wrong relationship in the first place, because some things are supposed to be off limits. If we're on the same team and you shared something with me at a vulnerable moment, and then I pull that out, and throw that in your face later on. I'm not on your team. I really never was on your team.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I was collecting weapons.
Right, exactly. This ain't no video game. This ain't Metroid or something like that. Wait a minute. Oh, he acting up. Let me pull this out the bag right quick.
Yes.
And then that shuts down, on one hand, what you can't do, you can't say on one hand that you want him to be vulnerable enough to share his emotion, and then on the other hand, use that same moment of vulnerability to beat him down with it, because then that's going to close the door, and now you're back to square one. You know what I mean? And it goes so much deeper. When we start talking about relationships, that's a whole nother ball game. But it plays a big part in our lives from all points, right? Because I don't know too many people who don't want to be in a relationship with someone that they love. I'm 45. You know what I'm saying? Definitely, as we get older, we want a companion. We want somebody to share our lives with. We want somebody to be in it with us for the long haul. But part of that, we have to feel safe enough to open up ourselves in these spaces, to open up ourselves, to be open to our emotions, to open up ourselves enough to let somebody else in. And so we got to be emotionally healthy to do that. And that takes us, men and women, getting in contact or getting in touch with our emotional sides and learning how to deal with them and act them out accordingly and verbally.
So here's a question I have for you guys, both of you guys. Because I know it's common that we say that once a man experiences real heartbreak in a relationship from a woman, it's more difficult for him to trust a woman in the future than it is for a woman to trust a man again. So do you think that's because is it ego, or is it that it's harder for a man to allow himself to feel vulnerable again because he felt that pain before? It's not socially acceptable, or is it because they don't actually do the healing to remove and understand that's an isolated incident? Because that one woman did that to me doesn't mean that any woman in the future is going to do that to me. What do y'all think the solution for that is?
Well, I think, first of all, I'll just say this. I don't agree with that. Right. I don't agree with it because, first of all, it's a generalization. You know, and it's too many different types of personalities, too many different types of people to say, well, this is what men deal with, because it's way bigger than that, right? So I don't agree with that. First of all, second of all, it depends on the emotional intelligence of that man. You know what I mean? Because I myself has been in some heartbreaking relationships. I myself has had my heart broke. You know what I mean? But I'm definitely still open to love. You know what I mean? And so it just depends on how you process it. And I think a lot of times women are so they are misguided in some of the ways that they think men believe or they think men react. Right. I had a conversation with someone not too long ago, and they were saying that, when men get out of a relationship, it don't even affect them. They just be on to the next person or whatever. And I said, no, that's not true. Right. The way that I explain it, or one of the ways that I explain it, is men work through things by working on things, right? So men work through things by working on things. So if we go back to Adam and Eve, right? When God, after they had bit off the apple, when God came and said, why did you do what I told you not to do? One of the first things that he told the man was, because you disobeyed, because you didn't do what I told you to do, as a way to, or should I say, as a way to deal with this problem, now you have to work. You have to till the land is actually what it is. So as an automatic response, right? When we deal with a situation, our first thing is to find something to work on. And so the reason why that it seems like men move on from relationships more quickly than women is because while we're in the relationship, if we want to save it, we're working on it. You know what I mean? We're doing what we need to do. But once we get to the realization that, okay, it ain't working, now I got to find something else to work on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now whatever that may, I might find to work on, unfortunately, and sometimes may be another relationship. You know what I'm saying? But that's how I'm working through this past relationship, by working on this new relationship. And it don't always have to be a relationship. Sometimes we throw ourselves into our jobs, we throw ourselves into our work, we throw ourselves, maybe into more leisure. Now we playing video games more, but we sometimes physically work on something else, but it doesn't change the fact that we're still dealing with, the emotions, still dealing with the relationship or whatever it is that we dealt with. We're just working through it differently, and then at the same time, because of our upbringing and because of it being so accepted for a woman to be straight out, openly emotional, when men don't express themselves in that same way, it's like, oh, they don't care. Right. It's nothing for you can see it on TV, you can see it in movies. The woman is crying, she got her bowl of ice cream, the doorbell ring, and all her friends come in, they got their own ice cream and bottles of wine. We can have a big emotional cry fest. You know what I'm saying? You can't do that with your guys.
Yes, you can. Y'all can.
You can't go over there with no thing of Haagen-Dazs sponsored, man. She left me.
I know you do. They're gonna be laughing at you, but you can do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But again, we do have to start nurturing those relationships and nurturing those spaces to make it more acceptable for us to have those conversations. But because that's something that women probably never or hardly ever see, they think that it doesn't affect us the same way, but it does. It affects us just as we deal with the same emotions that you guys deal with. We just probably don't show it as openly, because it's not so much accepted, you know what I'm saying? But we definitely still deal with them.
I learned that. I learned that it just looks different, but it doesn't mean the feelings and emotions are different, because I've gone through a breakup where I stayed single for 2-3 years, and he done been through 5 relationships. He was getting over me, but he was just using other women to do it while I was just working by myself. So it doesn't mean he was moving on faster than me. He was just doing it in a different way, a more unhealthy way than what I did.
Right, exactly. And a lot of that really kind of boils down to the fact that, when you do go to your male friends, one of the first things they'll tell you is, man, go ahead and get over whatever, bro. Go ahead. We don't have a place to really see. That's when emotional suppression really comes in. When we go through a heartbreak or something like that, we can't run, because usually our partner that we're having that breakup with is the only place that we were able to have any type of emotional interaction with. So now we're out here with our boys, and our boys is like, bro, we're not even trying to hear you. So now you really emotionally suppressing something. So you know what happens? You go, ladies, have y'all ever been on a date with the guy who tells you everything about his ex on that particular date?
Yeah, I know you ain't over her. You ain't over her. I ain't coming back on no second date with you.
But that's what that is. And so it's there's nowhere to, so they will sit there and they will suppress, and it's gonna come out eventually. They're gonna have to work it out eventually. Sometimes they work it out in the next relationship, and that relationship tends to suffer. So it's all about really being able to verbalize and get those things out and get those emotions out. And like the subject is today, mastering those emotions, finding a healthy outlet to process those emotions before you end up going into another relationship and having the same issue because you haven't gotten past the issue you had before.
Yeah, and we have to be, especially as men, even if it's that one person, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's that one person, we have to be that one person that our boys can come to, and we can have a good conversation. I remember watching a documentary some time ago with Snoop, and Snoop gave credit to Tupac for saving his marriage, right?
Wow.
And I don't know if it is probably not going around that much no more, but he gave Tupac credit for saving his marriage. And he was saying that in his height at that time, or where he was at in his career, he was having some trouble in his marriage. He was wilding out doing his thing, and he's at death row, and they got the whole group and the whole label together, and the guys having their talk, and they telling him, man, you Snoop Dogg. You know what I'm saying? You can get any woman you want, whatever. That's the whole circle. And he said, in the midst of that, when all that kind of died down, Tupac pulled him to the side and was like, look, this woman's been with you when you was just Calvin. You know what I'm saying? You get the Snoop and all that. When you go home, you're not Snoop. You just Calvin. And she was in love with you when you were Calvin. You know what I'm saying? You might meet all these females now that you're a Snoop Dogg. You know what I'm saying? But they don't know who Calvin is. You know what I'm saying? And this woman loves you when you were Calvin. Hang on to her. You know what I mean? And that one person, and they still together today. So sometimes, even in building these spaces, and sometimes, and even in that space, maybe Tupac didn't say it in front of everybody. You know what I mean? Right. Because he didn't want, probably got kicked back from all the other guys. What you said, whatever. So no, but let me pull you to the side though.
Every clique should have that. I was that guy. Excuse me, in my clique of friends. Like if they had anything, they would always come to 158. That's what they called it. That was my apartment back in the day. It's like, oh man, you got a problem, man. I guess I'm gonna have to hit 158 because I had a bottle of some sort of liquor, and we would sit there, we'll talk, and hey, if you fall asleep, you can sleep on the couch, whatever, it's cool, But I wasn't gonna persecute you for having emotions, and I'd had many guys, they won't admit to it now, but I'd had many of my guy friends sitting there crying, I don't know what to do, bro. She did it. So I was that guy, right? If you don't have that guy in your circle, guys, be that guy.
Right.
Your friends can come to, and they'll have an emotional safe space where they can actually talk, and because you could be saving your friend's life and not even realize it.
Right. Yeah. And they can save yours too, because when you become that guy and they feel safe coming to you, then that also gives you a chance to express what you're dealing with too. And and that gives you your release that you need. So like you said, I'm glad you said that, because that's what it is. It's kind of twofold. Just as much as you're helping them, they're helping you at the same time. You know what I mean? So yeah, we definitely, if you don't have it in your circle, then you be that person and you start creating it. You start be the change that you want to see. I know we hear that all the time, but that's what it is.
It's true. It's real. Well, I want to see if you guys want to address this question from one of our viewers. Hey, Love Tucker. She has a question. What about a man that is taught from his mother to never trust any woman?
Well, my first thing would be to tell that man to look at his mother's relationship.
Right. There's got to be some kind of dysfunction there.
So if she's teaching you that, then she's not in a healthy relationship. So if
she's a woman.
Yeah. So if you're going to take her advice, you know what I mean? Look at her relationship. Is that the relationship that you want?
Right.
Because if you're going to do what she's telling you to do, you're going to end up with the same thing that she got. So if she's in an unhealthy relationship and she says, don't trust a woman, maybe that might be the first woman you don't want to trust. And
exactly. That's my thing.
My mind said it, but
that would be my thinking. If she's telling you don't trust a woman and she is a woman, then that means don't trust her either. So if she's telling you don't trust women, then I think you might need to do the opposite.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in a scenario like that, it's not unless that man is willing to be open to a different perspective, then y'all already know what I say: red flags and checkered flags. So unless a man is going to be open to that perspective, then he may not be the one that you need to continue to, pursue. We can't save everybody.
No.
Man. I had that discussion with somebody else about being able to save people, especially with people like myself and, whose heart, I have a heart for people. You know what I mean? Even one of the other jobs that I do home health care. And I take care of people with disabilities. You know what I mean? And it's a job that it's not about the money, because we don't make no money.
Right. And you got to be a special kind of person to do that.
Yeah. So when you have a heart for people and you care about people, sometimes it's hard to accept that you can't save everybody. But one of the things that I learned the hard way is everybody don't want to be saved. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? It's one person. It's like you're a Superman and you're coming flying in this burning building to save somebody, and they trying to kick you out because they want to stay in the fire. You know,
Mhm.
and it's hard for you as a superhero to understand why would you want to burn. But there's
Yeah.
some that's like, no, you know, because it's a whole lot of different reasons why that. Some people like the attention. Some people identify with the hurt, and they get more attention from being hurt because other people feel sorry for them. You know,
Yep.
that's a whole nother conversation. Which is
Right.
still part of the same conversation because it's that emotional imbalance. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, yeah, this conversation can go on forever.
It can. Well, I tell you what, it's been a pleasure having you here. We definitely want to have you back because we
Yeah.
have more dope conversations we can have in the future concerning this, around this, and other things as well. So before we get out of here, before we wrap up, please again tell everybody where they can connect with you. Anything that you have coming up, any new podcast episodes, or anything that you want to promote.
Yeah. First of all, thank you guys for having me on. I definitely enjoy it. I always enjoy having dope conversation with dope people like yourselves. So I'm very appreciative for you guys even having me on. Again, my name is Ernest James. I am the creator and the host of the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where we discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I got a whole lot of stuff going on, right? So, one of the things I do t-shirts. So I do have a inspirational shirt line. I Deal to Heal. It's on Shopify. I can't remember. Deal to Heal with E James on Shopify, something like that. I don't know. If you put it this way, if you go to Deal to Heal with E James on Instagram,
Okay.
right? Deal to Heal with E James on Instagram. Click the link in my bio. It'll give you all the information. I'm also on Facebook. I'm also on YouTube. I got a lot of stuff going on. I just finished my first, excuse me. I just finished my first ebook, which is going to be on sale soon, called "Forgiving Me: 4 Steps to Forgiving You." 4 steps to forgiving yourself, right? That's coming out soon. I got 2 other ebooks that'll be coming out pretty soon. So yeah, again, I got a lot of stuff, going on, but just guys, please follow me. We already on YouTube right now. So just go right over to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, hit subscribe. Yeah. I got episodes come out every Wednesday, you know what I mean? And having other dope conversations with dope people like yourselves and some of those dope guests that I have on my platform, definitely having good conversations, man. And again, thank you guys for having me on.
Thank you. Everybody, go ahead and go over to Instagram. We have 2 of his Instagram pages scrolling right there on the bottom of the screen. Y'all can go and just hit him up and follow him and get in contact with him. I'm sure to share all your links or on your page and everything else that he
go to the bio and click the link in the bio, hit that flow page, it'll have everything on there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This won't be the last time that we have you on the platform. Gator, Did you have anything you want to close us out with?
I just want to say that this is a great conversation to have. Men, make sure that you are the change that you want to see. And I think I found like a beard aspiration now. So
you gotta find out. I started just like you, man. So you just got to deal with it. It's going to have to itchy days.
So there's hope.
Scratchy days.
That's good. Yes, but this was awesome. Thank you, everybody in the comments, for joining in the conversation. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all for showing up for us every Sunday. And we will see y'all again here, same time, same place. Good night, everybody.
Peace out.